What a wonderful evening, and what a gracious introduction, Jim. Thank you so much. To the members of the head table, to all of you who are joining us this evening, thank you for taking the time to be here. I have to say that I see so many of my friends here, and I suspect that this is the first time in quite a while where seeing me hasn't cost them that much. You notice a lot of the applause there. Yeah, that's right. That's true. I do have a lot of friends at this head table and a lot of friends in the audience, and so in advance, let me just say thank you so much for the enormous honor that you bestowed on me on November 3rd. You know, when I started this venture, even my wife was skeptical because I think the general estimation was that although I had good experience in Springfield, had established myself as a serious legislator, I had no money, no organization, and nobody could pronounce my name. But what I was able somehow, and this is where the blessings, Jim, come in, was to be blessed with a group of friends and colleagues who were willing to invest very early in what looked like a long shot. And because so many of you are here, I want to just let you know that I am truly grateful for the position that you placed me in. Thank you very much. It means an awful lot. Now, I have to also say that I feel a little bit like the dog that was chasing the bus. And I've caught the bus. And now I'm trying to figure out what to do with this bus. Nevertheless, I have felt enormous excitement about the prospects. It turns out that a lot of Democrats are somewhat depressed about what happened at the election, and a lot of Republicans are strutting their stuff and sticking their chests out and feel pretty good. And yet, I think my main message here this evening is the fact that the country as a whole, in my estimation at least, is still extraordinarily unsettled. And the reason I think that it's unsettled is because the language that both Republicans and Democrats have used in campaigns is inadequate to describe the complexity of the challenges that lie ahead. It may suffice during the course of a campaign season, but it will not suffice in terms of securing a long-term future for our children. And I think that this message is especially important for me to deliver here tonight because I'm joined by so many people who are in the business of running businesses and creating jobs that keep our region thriving. You know, somebody once said that the best social program is a job. And I believe that, and I think most Democrats believe it, and I think that most Republicans believe it. Now, we may argue about whether or not government has a role to play in fostering job growth and what exactly that role is. But we all want a healthy economy, providing hope and opportunity for those who want to work hard and make their own way. And I think that's what's frustrating for me, even for someone who's in the process, and what must be frustrating for many of you who are outside of the process, is the degree to which the ideological sound bites that seem to drive our politics don't speak to the day-to-day challenges and realities that all of you face in running for-profit businesses and non-for-profit businesses in our region. That ideology is inadequate, whether Republican or Democrat, to deal with the problems that we face. A lot of pundits right now and professional, political professionals have been speculating on the meaning of this year's election. Is this the beginning of a new Republican majority that will dominate American politics for the next decade? Do they have a mandate? Are the Democrats dead? These are all interesting questions, but I would argue that they're not the right ones. The real question is, can Democrats and Republicans work together to do the serious intellectual work necessarily to tackle the formidable challenges facing our country. It's going to be harder to reform Medicare if more and more people don't have employer-based health insurance. It is going to be harder to reform Social Security if the pension system on the market side is in a free fall. And so we're going to have a conversation, and the people in this room have to be a part of this conversation. If we're going to be serious about entitlement reform, then we're also going to have to have a conversation about what are the obligations that we share in the market in order to make sure that people aren't left on their own. There are two other areas where I think we're going to have to meet some serious challenges, and right now we're not engaging across the aisle in the way that we have to. The first, obviously, is the war on terrorism. As some of you know, I was not a supporter of this war. I did not support it, not because I'm a pacifist. I think there are times where wars are necessary to be fought, but because I thought it was a broad strategic mistake. I thought it took away our focus from destroying Al-Qaeda, and I thought it would serve as a recruiting bonanza for Islamic terrorists. Having said that, we have no choice but to succeed there now. The stakes are enormous for the world and for our own security. If Iraq can find its way to a reasonable semblance of a modern, reformed democratic state, it will reap benefits in the region for generations to come, and if it disintegrates into chaos, it will plant the seeds of even greater and more poisonous radicalism. But even as we recognize that we have an immediate challenge in Iraq, let's step back for a moment and consider what kind of foreign policy should we be crafting. Is our only choice a bellicose unilateralism or a timid isolationism? I don't think those are either choices that we have to accept. I think what we have to recognize is that the fight against terrorism requires an intelligent multilateral approach. We can't possibly win the war on terror without extraordinary levels of cooperation from nations around the globe. The United States should never be afraid to defend itself and does not need the ratification of the world to defend itself, but we should be smart on terrorism and not just strong on terrorism. The question for our leaders, as well as every citizen, is how do we affirm the very positive values of faith and family and community in a way that also embraces inclusivity and tolerance and diversity. That's why I said at the opening that the problem is a moral question, because we have a set of shared values, but sometimes those values may come into conflict. We value family, we value faith, and we value tradition. But we also value the fact that this country is what it is because people bring to the table different traditions and different cultures and different faiths. And the question is, how do we respect and abide by those things that we care about and yet maintain a sense of common ground? It is appropriate that we should practice what we preach in our own homeland. And I think if we do that, then I'm absolutely confident that we can meet these challenges. You know, oftentimes people tell me, how do you maintain your faith and confidence in politics given how difficult it seems it is to make progress? And I often would close my talks with what is probably my favorite quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." It's long, but it bends towards justice. But it doesn't bend by itself. It bends because each of us are willing to put our hands on that arc and bend it in the direction of justice. And if you think of all the hands in this room and the hands that they connect to, and if all of us are willing to set aside some of our petty differences and try to bend that arc towards justice, I'm absolutely certain that it will go in that direction. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.